We're joined now by Representative Jim Costa. He's a Democrat from California and sits on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, Mimi. It's good to be on C-SPAN and to have an opportunity to have a conversation about critical issues facing our nation and the world we live in today. I think it's a seminal moment that we are living in today in American and world history.
Well, let's talk about one of those issues. You were in Israel a bit ago, and you also visited Ukraine. Can you tell us about what's happening on the GOP leadership package for foreign aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan?
Well, I was in Kiev in February, and as you noted, 2 weeks ago I was in Israel for 5 days. I think the package, as we've been seeing the language that was drafted yesterday, really reflects the bipartisan legislation that the Senate put together months ago, and I think that that's been the effort that we've been trying to make with Speaker Johnson for months now, is to have an up or down vote bill on the Senate package that, even though many of us signed the petition to bring the bill to the House floor, Speaker Johnson's determined that attempting to provide a three-bill solution that provides aid to Israel, aid to Ukraine, aid to Taiwan, and humanitarian aid for 120,000 Armenians that have lost their historic home in Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, and the Palestinians who have suffered so much in the last 6 months, that humanitarian aid would be provided in a part of this package. And so that's what we're looking at voting on Saturday, and I think it's a reflection of the Senate bill, and I'm hopeful that we're going to have the bipartisan support to pass the 4 pieces of legislation that you noted.
And the idea of linking aid between Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, are you in favor of that? Do you prefer that all those bills be separate? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I supported the Senate package, and I think that the 4 bills that are being talked about that are being linked, as long as there are no poison pills, as I think the Democrats have asked Speaker Johnson, that appears to be the case. And so, but I think it's also critical that we link the bills, frankly, because this is really, we call it a supplemental package. It's a national security package. It's not only for assistance to Ukraine, that are bravely fighting for their sovereignty and their independence against this unprovoked attack by Russia. President Putin, who is a war criminal, who's bombed hospitals and schools and kidnapped over 40,000 Ukrainian children. I mean, I call Russia today a syndicate masquerading as a country with a mob boss called Putin. And so that funding, together with the funding for Israel, who just this last weekend, and I was there 2 weeks ago, withstood an attack by Iran of over 350 drones and ballistic missiles, in which we and the British, and what was very interesting, the Jordanians and the Saudi Arabians, moderate Arab states, joined together to prevent those attacks from injuring or killing anybody in Israel, even though the old city of Jerusalem was targeted, along with the important religious sites for the Christian community, the Muslim community, and the Jewish community in Jerusalem. So the fact is that these legislation is necessary because the world is watching. The funding for Taiwan is just as important. China is watching whether or not America will step up and continue its support for Ukraine, as well as Israel, and the European Union, our allies with NATO, have already provided their support in the tune of some $52 billion. And it's very critical that we do the same and that we pass this package by Saturday.
And President Biden and other world leaders have called on Israel to not retaliate against Iran for those airstrikes over the weekend. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that Israel has to be measured in their response to this. They won, I think, a very decisive effort last weekend by being able to withstand and stop the entire attack by Iran. And they did it not only with their own efforts, but with the support of America, the British, and some of their moderate Arab neighbors. What we need to do is to get Hamas to return. Hamas is the terrorist organization that provoked this entire effort on October 7th, to return the hostages so that we can get a ceasefire, and then we can come about an effort to try to rebuild and get Hamas out of the picture, because frankly their only purpose is to destroy the state of Israel and to kill Jewish people. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, and going back to the Iranian airstrikes, you say a measured response by Israel. Can you be a little bit more specific? I mean, would that mean an attack on Iranian territory? Because Iran has been very clear that any kind of retaliation is going to provoke them even more.
Well, I think that the Israeli government is attempting to weigh right now what the response is. I'm not going to determine for them what a measured response is, but I think it's very clear, and President Biden has made it known along with our G7 allies in Europe, that we have been there to support Israel and help them defend their sovereignty. When I was there 2 weeks ago, notwithstanding not a lot of great support for the current Israeli government, there's overwhelming majority support among Israelis that they feel that their survival is at stake. And I think it's important to know that. I mean, not only with the attack on October 7th, but they look at the buildup in Lebanon with Hezbollah. They look at the continued attacks by Hamas, and they understand that 9.2 million Israelis are together, and they must defend their sovereignty and their nation. So there's a lot of debate. There are protests that are going on within Israel, but this is an existential view among Israelis. They feel personally, as they should, that they must defend their sovereignty and their democracy, and that's why we're there to support them. But clearly we do not want to see a regional war taking place, because the larger picture is between moderate Arab states led by the Saudis and the Sunni background and the radical Iran factions who are trying to determine hegemony over the Middle East. Who will dominate the Middle East? That's the bigger picture. And therefore we want to avoid a regional war that would have consequences which we cannot predict. And I think that's the delicate balance that the Biden administration is trying to suggest to the Israeli government that we need to be working together on to end this conflict in Gaza, bring the hostages home, and to begin building with the effort with Saudi Arabia. I think part of the reason the attack occurred on October 7th is because Iran and Hamas felt that they were getting very close to an agreement with Saudi Arabia and Israel to join the Abraham Accords, which would, I think, be very important in terms of establishing that expanded link between moderate Arab states and Israel.